All right, everybody. Moving on in our training. This will be part 2, day 1. We're going to go over CCT, the controller configuration tool. Now, this is the software that you use in Johnson Controls or Facility Explorer to program the field devices. Okay, we don't, unlike most other vendors, we don't use something inside a workbench to program our controllers. We actually use a different software, CCT. And that allows you, it's a good thing, it allows you to go and plug in and do that controller without having to run a workbench or without having to go through a JACE or anything like that. Johnson does have some pretty cool tools where you can just go right up to the device and plug into that device and talk to it, download it, commission it, troubleshoot it, everything. So let's talk about CCT. So first, I just want to touch on how to install it because it can be kind of difficult to install sometimes. So you got a couple different files now. It used to just be one file called CCT or PCT, all the parts and pieces for you. Now it's all licensed and it's all licensed separately. So you're going to have to download these things right here. Now, the software manager does come inside of the exe file for the CCT. So if you load the CCT, it will load the software manager for you. But you will have to, as a separate download the field controller packages. And just to make sure your system is up to date, your SA bus device packages are up to date, I would recommend you download the Johnson Controls SA bus device packages. These three right here are going to be your downloads for CCT. And you'll have to have a license for the top two, for CCT itself and for your field controller packages. They do that because there is an FX field controller packages, which is the Facility Explorer version, and there's a MS field controller packages, which is the branch controllers. So that's the way they separate the branch controllers from the field controllers. Everything else is the exact same. So when you're installing this onto your computer, uh, right click and install as admin when you're running JCI software. That will help you not run into too many troubleshooting errors in the future. There's a couple glitches on there. If you ever get an MOI exception whenever you're trying to download something or upload something, that is have admin privileges. All you have to do is close out a CTT, and then instead of opening it the normal way, right click on CCT and run as admin, and that will fix that for you. All right. So when this is your software manager. Once you get everything loaded, you will have to add your licenses inside a software manager. So the very first thing you do when you open up Software Manager, you want to come down to the very bottom left-hand corner, and it's going to say Machine Tag, and it's going to say Undefined right there. You're going to want to click on where it says Undefined and give it a name. And if you want to help yourself later, if you lose your computer or whatever, give it a name that you can remember or it's very easily recognized. That way, the distributor you bought your license from can easily find it and they can transfer that license to a new or computer for you. So give it a name first, and then you go up in the top right hand corner and click Add Licenses. And if you're online, to a network somewhere, to the internet, you do online with activation code. Your distributor is going to send you a very long list of character keys that you'll just copy and paste in there. And you can paste up to 5 at a time, I believe. You just have to click the plus button whenever you're adding that in. But like I said before, you're going to want the field controller packages and the CCT. Here's all the other stuff that you get with a bundle. They can be licensed, but the ones that we care about for CCT is the field controller packages and CCT. Once your computer is licensed, then you'll want to open up CCT. In the blank page of CCT, when it opens, if you go up here and click Define Hardware, this will pop up, and you want to make sure that you have controllers on the left-hand side, and you have on the right-hand side, everything says licensed. If you do not have controllers at all on here, that means you need to install the field controller packages. So all you have to do on that download through field controller packages, clicking inside, and eventually it'll run the program. There's multiple folders inside of multiple folders in there. It makes it kind of difficult, but if you keep clicking through, you'll get to it. If you have field controllers and everything is unlicensed over here, then you need to go back to your license manager, software manager, and make sure that you have the proper license in there. Even if you do have the license, maybe a lot of times if you reload it, take those keys and reload at it like a new license, that will fix the unlicensed issue over here. I've seen that a time or two. Now, if you do have PCT or an old version of CCT on your computer, you'll have to install and get rid of the folders on there. I do have a video on that, so go and search for that. If you're adding this to an older computer that already has some Johnson software on there, it will not load over that software. You'll have all kinds of problems. And Johnson CCT uses SQL-based everything, so you actually have to run Windows Pro or better. So Windows Pro or Windows Enterprise in order to load CCT on your home computer, any Windows home computer, via 11 or whatever. You cannot load the CCT on the home version of Windows because the home version of Windows is not the Pro version of Windows runs SQL. So you must do the Pro version to run that. All right, now that we know how to install CCT and the gotcha's there, let's open it up. And I'll show you around. There we go. So we got this open. If you just opened it and just turned on your computer and you got an error saying something about the license server, here's a quick little trick. You want to come down here to your start menu and type in services. Go down to JCI license service and click in there. And you might have the startup type as automatic delayed start. If you change that to automatic and hit apply OK and then start the service, you won't have that error anymore. It'll automatically start up right when the computer starts up. The automatic delayed start, it could take up to 5 minutes after your computer starts up to run that service. It's going to let everything else run first, and then finally it'll kick on that service. That way it doesn't bog down your computer. But if you're like me and want to get to work right away, then you want to change that setting to automatic start. All right, so we have CCT, and just like I showed you before, if we go and click Define Hardware, we get all our packages and what we have licensed, okay? Over here in the settings portion of it, we have release mode, and we can actually change our release mode from 10.2 for the legacy controllers up to, now it's 10.7. I don't have 10.7 on this PC. This is an older PC that I do my videos on. My field computer does have 10.7 on it. It's the latest and greatest. That's what we install out there in the field. But here at home, or the lab, we'll just run up to 10.6. So this is where you change your versions. And right now I'm in legacy, so it won't do any of the new controllers. So if I wanted to do a new controller, I would come over here and do 10.6, and it will automatically change my release mode for me. This is great because back in the day, when I worked for Johnson, we'd have to completely uninstall our version and install the version that we need. That took a lot of time. This, I didn't even speed up the video, and it's already been done. So we have that. To create a new program, we always go to File, New. So File, New will create a new program for us. Now you might have something like this whenever you first opened it. I don't really particularly like that screen because it's a two-click screen. Because I'm already in 10.6, if I choose anything on this page, it's going to put me back into 10.2. I would have to hit this unknown, go up here to 10.6, click on a device, make sure it stays at 10.6, and hit OK. And what that will do is when I create my new program, it'll automatically configure it for this device, but I'll just do that later. I just like the unknowns better. So I normally click this button that says do not show future dialog and hit OK. And that way I always hit this screen right here. Now on this screen, a system name is mandatory. You have to have at least one character in there. You could call it J if you want, but you cannot have it blank. So this is where you really name it a generic system name. So again, on the system name, you want it to be generic, but something that describes maybe the type of unit. Because when you do a discovery in CCT, it'll come up with the device name and the system name. The device name, you want to be specific to that device. That's where it's RTU1, RTU2, VAV12, whatever. That's the device name. The system name should be something like RTU two-stage heat, two-stage cool, or something like that. That way, you kind of know what that unit has, or VAV SCR, fan power box SCR, fan power box two-stage. That way, when I'm discovering on CCT, I can see what kind of devices are out there. And I can honestly, I can troubleshoot a building just by looking at the name, not even knowing what's in there. If it's done right, if I have a cold call somewhere, I go, it might be cold because this is a cooling only VAV, and you have too high of a minimum flow, right? Something like that. So I could troubleshoot just by looking at the system name a lot of times. The system type, this is where you click if you want to build an air handler program, a fan coil, heat pump, VAV, boiler, or chillers, right? There's you do your own programs down here. So this is the large overview. And then if you choose something like air handler, you're going to have a different configurations of an air handler, including a rooftop unit. So as you know, up here you didn't see a rooftop. That's because a rooftop is an air handler. So air handler, rooftop, boom. Okay. You won't get that for fan coil because fan coil is just too simple. You will get that for VAVs just because there's a single duct and a dual duct VAV. And you can have subordinates if you set it up that way. Okay. I don't believe there's anything for central heating or cooling. Oh, there is cooling with optimization. Probably stay away from that one. That takes a lot of settings to make it right. But today we'll just do simple air handler, and we'll call it VAVHU. Okay. Imperial if you're in the United States, metric if you're anywhere else, and you hit OK. Now you have the system selection wizard. You just go through and answer the questions on what the unit actually has. So you would get the unit and go, is this a single speed or variable speed? Well, it's a variable speed, I hope, because I just said it was a VAV unit. So we're controlling VAVs. So it needs to have some kind of VAV. Does it have fan status? Yes or no? Okay. Automatic restart or manual restart? choose automatic. That way the programs will restart if something happens and it doesn't see fan status, and it doesn't take an engineer to go through CCT and click on restart. It will need that if you choose manual restart. You go through about your alarm management stuff. If it has a return fan, you can click on there and you can decide how you want that return fan to run based on these options right here. Don't worry if you don't see everything exactly the same. We can tweak that after we build the program. This is the program. Economizer dampers, if we have that, we can leave that checked. If we don't, we can uncheck it. Temperature control strategy, since we're doing VAVs, we do a discharge air control, right? We might want to 55 degrees all year round, or we might want to reset from outdoor air temperature, okay? Or alternative reset from outdoor air temperature. Or we could just do a zone control. If this isn't a VAV unit, we could control to a certain zone. Occupancy control. I would try to steer you away from checking always occupied. If you leave it scheduled occupied, guess what? And don't touch it. It's going to come in as a value of not set. Not set into Johnson programming just means occupied. It's going to just stay occupied all the time. If you choose this always occupied, it takes all that logic away that anytime the customer comes back and go, yeah, I want to put a schedule in there, you're going to have to rewrite the program. You won't have to rewrite the program. You just have to tie the points together. No problem. Easy. Override support. So if someone wants the unit to come on for 2 hours when it's unoccupied by doing something, if you leave that checked, you can actually configure that. And then how do you want it to run at night? Do you want intermittent or do you want off? You off during unoccupied. That doesn't give you unoccupied set points. If you want to do intermediate, then you could do some unoccupied set points in there. Whenever the units get to the unoccupied set points, the unit will kick on and run. Okay. Heat recovery. If you do have a heat recovery wheel or any kind of heat recovery device, you can click that option and configure the heat recovery. Coils. If you have preheat, you can choose that. Okay. If you have cooling, you can have stage cooling or chill water. Stage goes up to 8 stages, so you can have a quite large unit. And then reheat. So if you have reheat, difference between preheat and reheat is one's before the cooling coil, one's after the cooling coil. Preheat usually is to protect the cooling coil. Reheat is usually to reheat the space. Usually, I said. That's why I say usually. Okay. Same thing on reheat. We have stage. You got up to 8 stages. You have proportional, incremental. So if you have a floating output, you would choose that incremental, right? We got humidification. So if there is a humidifier on the system, we can check that and fill out that. Dehumidification. If we have a way to dehumidify, meaning we would need reheat, we would check that. Then we got some additional options. And then now here we have this N2 compatibility option. It just by checking this N2 compatibility does not automatically turn this device into N2. There is one more step you have to do if you do click this. If you don't click this, we can still make this device N2. Some of the points just might not line up if you're replacing one of those legacy N2 controllers. But if you are planning on replacing a legacy N2 controller and bringing this into the front end easily, you could click this and it'll try to match up those points as much as it can. We have a next page on this one, and this is for feedback and some miscellaneous points. If you have outdoor temperature, humidity, CO2, mixed air temperature, all the stuff that the programs before don't need, like we know we have a discharge error. That's why this is grayed out, because it's already selected for us. We know we have static pressure. It's grayed out because it's already selected for us because of what we chose on the previous page. But if we had some return sensors and stuff like that, which I'm sure we do, we would click on those. Building static, monitored safeties. So if you have your smoke detectors, high static, low temp, high temp, stuff like that, you can click that. Once you're done filling out everything that you can fill out, you click finish. And in Johnson Controls, this builds the programming for you. If you wanted to modify something, you could fully modify everything on this page. Anything that is tan is modifiable. Or should I say the program is viewable and we can modify the program. Anything that's white, we cannot view the program. Oops. So yeah, we have the insert logic and view logic on the tan, and we do not have it on the white. On the white, we don't really know what it's doing. It's doing stuff behind the scenes. Okay. On the tan, we can actually view the logic. I can double click here on this upper bar and it drops that lower bar away. That way I could see more of what's going on. This is block logic, okay? Not script, but block. So you just follow the lines. These right here are hidden. So this right here tells me that it's only connected one time. So it's connected right here to this mode. Right here, this is telling me it's connected 2 different times. I'm looking for the number 1 and it's out there 2 times. So I know here's 1, so this is this, and then here's a 1 here, so this is this. Same thing here. I'm looking for the number 2 and I know it's connected 2 times out there. If I couldn't find one of these, I can right click and click unhide and it brings back my lines. Once I find where it's connected 2 times, I can come back over here and hide my lines. Okay, so that's a way of getting around all those lines on that screen. I'm not going to really touch on these right now, like the logic points. We'll have a class on that later. But over here on the top left, to get back, I just go back to my control tab. Going back to my control tab gets me all of my programming. As you see, I have my network inputs on the left-hand side. All my inputs are on the left. At the top, I have network. In the middle, I have hardware. I know it doesn't say hardware, but these are my hardware inputs. Okay. Down here is a miscellaneous. Johnson uses this to determine if something is an overridden or not overridden. We do not want to mess with anything in the miscellaneous section. Okay. If we accidentally delete out one of these things, we probably screwed up a program somewhere. We're going to want to probably go back and create the program again, in order to fix our mistake if we touch anything miscellaneous. So if I want to get that bottom bar back, I can double click right here and it brings back my bottom bar. If I just wanted to see the bottom bar, I can double click on the bottom bar and now I got all this that I can see. But going again from the top, we have these 3 are programming. These is kind of set points. These programs right here determine what state we're in, and over here it looks at the state and it looks at your set points and your hardware inputs and network inputs, and it determines an output. So this is your output control. Up here, this is our output side. Again, we have network outputs at the top, hardware outputs in the middle, and miscellaneous at the bottom. If you do have anything in miscellaneous over here, same thing, don't touch it. Okay. Down at the bottom half of the screen, we have parameters. Now this is where you want to change your set points and stuff like that. Especially for a VAV controller, you'll have your K vectors, everything else down here. In an air handler program, we kind of just have some set points. The next one is connections, and that's the connections to the actual programs. So this changes depending on what I click up here. So if I wanted to see everywhere my discharge air was connected, I come over here to discharge air under my connections page, and this shows me it's connected to 3 different programs. Quick and easily go to each program by clicking on the hyperlink down proportional valve cooling control program. I see that the discharge air is the process variable, and it's looking at the discharge air set point to determine the cooling percent of the coil right here. If I wanted to get back, I'd just come back over here and I can go down to my next one. Same thing for my reheat, and this is controlling my reheat command. And then one more time, it's controlling a state to say if we're in heating, cooling, or satisfied is what this one goes to. Okay, all 3 very important to run a system. Outputs. So if I were troubleshooting this system or something, if I didn't like the way this looks, if this is too much for you, you can come over here to settings and go to perspective and change it to a simple view. Get rid of all that programming that's in the middle and shows you all your inputs on your left side, all your outputs on your right side, and all your parameters in the middle. So it's a quick and easy to view what's going on. This is a great when we're actually in commissioning mode and we see the points on both sides. And that's in settings, perspective, classic view versus simple. Okay. Moving on down here at the bottom, connections, we have the state tables. So state tables are a very powerful tool. We will be going over a state tables in the state table lab here later on in the series. But state tables tell what the output control programs, what state they're actually in. This allows the fan to turn off anytime the fire alarm goes off, and allows the fan to come on based off of the schedule. So we don't want the fan to come on all the time if a fire alarm is starting or normal. We just want it to go off if it's off. So we could put that in states. This allows the cooling coil to open all the way, a water flush, whenever the low tip alarm comes off. We see this low tip alarm and alarm or cooling coil goes into water flush. That means it's going to open all the way to 100%. So does our reheat coil. So the reheat and cooling coil both open 100% anytime our low tip alarm goes off. Okay. So that's a brief of the states. Don't worry, we'll get into that in another lesson. Display, don't have a controller selected. I don't have a display option. So in order to have the controller selected, I have to come up here to define hardware. Define hardware. Assigns all these inputs and outputs a point automatically for me. Don't like where they're at, I can move them around. And if there's stuff in my way, replace where everything is. I will not drop something with a 0 to 10 volt signal analog. This is invalid move signal type mismatch. Okay, so it does have some settings in there. You have to have all these numbers. Next is our network setting. Okay, this is where you want to be very specific. This is where you want that AHU01, 03. This is the generic. Make this specific device. of device. So whatever address you have the controller labeled as, this is what you want to match that to. And an instance number, you have to have a unique instance number for the whole job. Okay, every device that's going under a supervisor has to have a different instance number. Now you can have the same MAC address if it's on different trunks. So if I'm running two different trunks on base COM1, COM2, I can have two different fours, a 4 on COM1, a 4 on COM2. I cannot have two the same instance number. COM1 can be 104, 2 cannot be 104, it can be 204 if we want, but we have to have a different scheme for each trunk. Packages, this shows you what we looked at before. Or if you're always using a 9090 for an air handler, you can come in here and choose the 9090. Anytime you choose an air handler program in that start, it will automatically assign the same thing. Choose what you want the controller to be. In 2 mapping, this is where we actually create a N2 device, turn this device into. We'll have a class on this later on in the series, but if you see anything here other than a blank screen, this is going to turn that into an N2 device. So if you see this, this is going to turn this into an N2 device whenever we go to download it. If you see something like this, it's not. Again, we'll go over that in detail later. Now that I have my device selected, I go back to my display, and boom, now I have my display. Now remember, we talked about in the first series, the controllers, the 9090s, have built-in displays. Any controller can actually have an external display, including a VAV. I don't know why you would want a VAV with a display, but you can. Okay, so if you wanted those inputs and outputs to be displayed or to be viewable whenever you have a display, you actually have to set that up. It is not automatic in Johnson. So under your display tab, you would come over here and click edit. And if you want to do it quick and fast, available on the display, you would click this auto populate. As soon as you do that, you hit apply and it will work. Now, password, and there is no default password. So if I wanted to be able to see all those points and everything, I would come over here and hit disabled, or I'd do a local password and put in the password parameters that we want. I'm going to hit disabled, and when I do that, that alarm goes away. Okay. Clicking any one of these points right here in the box will actually make that point read only. And you could see that whenever we hover over this little triangle, it says the checkbox in the tree represents read only. So if I didn't want a customer to they wouldn't be able to override those points. Okay. If we wanted to see something in the idle page, there's two different ways of doing that. We can take it out of the folder that it's currently in, like discharge air temperature, drag it up to idle page and drop it in, and it removes it from the outputs page to the idle page. That way it'll scroll across the screen every time it's plugged in and working. Or the other way is I could come up here and copy and paste it in. That way I can have it in both places. Okay. Or I can come over here to the left-hand side and I can drag out the green and paste it in, and that allows it to have it in two different places. Okay, so those are the different ways to have it in the idle page. Once you're done and you like it, you can click OK, apply. Advanced tab, we'll have a class on this later, but this is where we can have a calendar set up in here. Schedules, trends, we can actually trend points. That way we can see those trends actually handheld display or that built-in display. And we can even have intrinsic alarms that we can see on that display. That's what we can do on the advanced tab. Now, not all controllers will allow you to have the advanced options. It has to have the built-in time clock on the controllers to have the advanced options. Now, all the new F4 controllers do have that built-in time clock, but the older generation, the PCGs and PCBs, do not have built-in time clocks. They do not have advanced options. You had to get, back then, a PCA for advanced in order to have this advanced options. And then our backnet exposed. If we wanted something not to be backnet exposed, we can actually come in here and turn the backnet exposure off to that if we wanted to. Don't know why we want to get rid of the backnet, but we could, in theory, get rid of the backnet. Okay. When we have our program done and ready, we would come up here and transfer to device. Now this used to say upload, download, right? Only. And Johnson got smart because there was a whole bunch of people that really didn't know what was an upload and what was a download. We get that confused. So they put transfer to computer is an upload, transfer to device is a download. If you ever meet a very Johnson guy file, you will probably see sticky tabs all over the very top of the screen saying upload, 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 upload. That's because the older generation controller, previous generation, old DX900s, you can actually download program into it. So if you got confused on the what was upload, what was download, you actually hit the wrong thing, you could wipe out all the programming in that controller just by downloading a blank controller, blank program. They have fixed this, and now downloading a blank program, you have to have something on your screen. But they've even fixed it even farther in this series where it says transfer to computer, transfer to device. Makes it a little bit easier to see. Tools. We have some trunk utilities. We'll go over that later here. Online operations is a good one to go to when you're troubleshooting why a box isn't talking or you keep getting it that you cannot see the controller. If your layout gets all screwed up over here, you can go over here to view reset layout and it will fix it for you. If you do have your stuff backwards and you do reset layout, it does not fix that, so you will have to kind of put the top on the top and the bottom on the bottom and hit reset layout. You can do arrange multiple screens and that will pop off each one of these separately, where this is on one side, this is on one screen, and this is on the other. Restore to default screens brings this back, and then reset layout. There we go. Okay. Print. We can actually print this information right here, especially our inputs and outputs, and be able to have a printout of what we have. If I did that, that would give me all of this. You can play around with that and see which ones, which printouts you're actually wanting to see. It is a little misleading sometimes. You do get some different stuff, but see, this one will show me where my input one, what's landed on there, all the way through my outputs. Okay. Help. You could use the help screen to find more information on anything. Side loops we'll be going over later. And then the other thing is system select. Say we were looking at our system and we completely chose the wrong. We don't have to go back over here and do a could start over. We could come over to System Select, and that gets us back into their question and answer, and it keeps it exactly the way we answered it before. Now, when we do change anything on here, it will completely rebuild everything. So if you did anything custom behind the scenes, just know it's going to wipe that completely out and rebuild it just like a new program. So now it rebuilt it. You see all my inputs and outputs went away, the assignments there. So I'd have to come back to network, click on this, and then give all the inputs and outputs a place to go. All right. And that's a brief overview of CCT. Our next section will be connecting to controllers. So like and subscribe, hit the bell notification if you want to see more of the programming like this. Again, this is part 2 of day 1. We'll be going over part 3 of day 1 on the next class.